Right now, you are reading these words and believing that you chose to read them. You picked up your phone or opened your laptop or clicked on this video, and you made a decision to be here. You did not. The decision was made for you by your brain roughly half a second before you became aware of making it. You experienced the choice after it had already happened. What you felt as deciding was actually the feeling of being informed about a decision that was already done. This is not a theory. It is one of the most replicated findings in modern neuroscience. And what it implies about who is actually running your life is something most people spend their entire lives trying not to think about. Let's start with the experiment that started everything. In 1983, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet at the University of California, San Francisco asked volunteers to do something simple: sit in front of a clock, flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, and report the position of the clock hand at the exact moment they first felt the urge to move. While they did this, Libet measured their brain activity with electrodes attached to their scalp. What he found should have ended the debate about free will immediately. It did not, but the data has never been seriously challenged. Before the volunteers reported feeling the urge to move, before the conscious experience of deciding, their brains showed a measurable electrical buildup called the readiness potential. This buildup began, on average, 550 milliseconds before the movement. The conscious awareness of wanting to move came 200 milliseconds before the movement. The math is simple and brutal. The brain was preparing to act 350 milliseconds before the person knew they wanted to act. The decision was underway before the person experienced deciding. Libet himself struggled with the implications. He spent years looking for a way to preserve human agency within his own data. He proposed that even if the decision was initiated unconsciously, perhaps the conscious mind retained veto power, the ability to stop a movement already in preparation. He called it free won't. The idea was that even if you did not originate the decision, you could cancel it. That consciousness was not the author of action, but the editor, able to override the impulse even if it could not generate one. It was a generous interpretation of the data, and subsequent research has been less generous. In 2008, John Dylan Haynes at the Charité Hospital in Berlin used functional MRI, a technology unavailable to Libet, to watch the brain during decision-making in real time. Haynes asked volunteers to press one of two buttons whenever they felt like it, and to remember which button they pressed at which moment. Then he fed the brain scan data into a computer and asked it to predict which button a volunteer would press. The computer could predict the choice up to 10 seconds before the volunteer was consciously aware of making it. 10 seconds, not half a second. 10 full seconds before the person felt themselves deciding, their brain had already encoded the outcome. The prefrontal cortex and the parietal cortex were already building the decision. The conscious mind had not been consulted. It would be informed later. When the volunteers were told these results, told that a computer had predicted their free choices from their brain scans 10 seconds before they made them. The most common response was not scientific interest. It was discomfort, the feeling that something important had been taken away. But here is where it gets more complicated and more interesting. Your brain is not making random decisions without you. The decisions it makes ahead of your conscious awareness are built from everything you have ever experienced, learned, valued, and practiced. Your habits, your fears, your attachments, your history, the 10,000 previous choices that shaped the neural pathways now running the current one. The brain that decided before you did is your brain. It is built from you. It is saturated with you. Every preference, every aversion, every lesson absorbed from every failure and every success. All of it is encoded in the very circuits that are generating the decisions you then experience as yours. The question is not whether the decisions are yours. They are yours in every meaningful sense. The question is whether the you that makes them is the conscious, deliberating self you experience yourself as being, or whether that self is more like a narrator, watching events unfold, writing them into a story, calling the story free will. This distinction matters enormously in practical terms. Research on habit formation has found that up to 45% of human daily behavior is habitual, not consciously decided at all. You drive the same route to work without deciding to. You reach for your phone within minutes of waking without choosing to. You respond to the same social situations with the same emotional reactions, not because you deliberated and selected a response, but because the circuit for that response has been run thousands of times and now runs automatically. This is not failure. This is efficiency. Your brain offloads routine decisions to unconscious processing precisely because conscious deliberation is slow, expensive, and exhausting. A brain that consciously decided every action, which foot to put forward first when walking, how much pressure to apply when holding a cup, when to blink, would be so overwhelmed by the processing demands of routine action that it could not function. The unconscious is not the enemy of good decision-making. It is the infrastructure that makes conscious decision-making possible at all by handling everything else. But the unconscious is also where your biases live. Every study ever conducted on unconscious bias has found the same thing. Humans make rapid, automatic judgments about other people based on appearance, race, gender, age, accent that happen faster than conscious thought can intervene, that influence subsequent behavior, and that the person making the judgment is usually completely unaware of. These are not choices in any meaningful sense. They are automatic outputs of neural systems shaped by exposure, by the patterns your brain has absorbed from your environment and encoded as predictions about the world. You did not choose your biases, you absorbed them. And they run ahead of your awareness, shaping your behavior before you have a chance to examine them. The Libet experiment did not just reveal something about wrist flexion. It revealed something about the structure of every judgment, preference, and reaction you have ever had. Then there is the question of what changes when you know this. Researchers studying the effects of disbelief in free will have found something troubling. People who are primed to believe that free will is an illusion, who are told before a task that their choices are determined by brain processes outside their control, behave worse, more dishonestly, more aggressively, less helpfully toward others. The belief that your choices matter appears to be necessary for making choices that matter. This is its own kind of evidence for something, not for the existence of free will in the philosophical sense, but for the practical necessity of acting as if you have it. The human mind requires the story of agency to function as an agent. The narrative of free choice is not just a comfortable illusion. It is load-bearing architecture. So where does this leave you? Your brain initiates decisions before you experience making them. It runs the majority of your behavior on automatic circuits you did not consciously install. It encodes judgments before your conscious mind has processed enough information to form one. And the self that experiences all of this as chosen, as deliberate, as authored, is arriving slightly after the fact. But the brain running all of this is yours, shaped by every experience you have ever had, every book you ever read, every conversation that changed you, every moment you chose to practice something until it became automatic. The decisions your brain makes before you make them are the accumulated output of every decision you have ever consciously made in the past. You are not a passenger in your own life. You are the author of the system that is now running the story. The half-second gap between your brain deciding and you experiencing the decision is not evidence that you are not in control. It is evidence that control operates at a deeper level than you thought. And the most important decisions you will ever make are the ones you make now, deliberately, consciously, with full awareness, knowing that they are being written into the circuits that will run your life before you even know it is running.